Doug Campbell is a candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives here in Delaware. And at this point, I guess you're one of two Constitution Party candidates.
Yes.
Your counterpart in the party will be in here tomorrow. But for those folks out there, most of them who listen to this show on a daily basis have a passing familiarity with the Constitution Party. Mr. Baldwin, in fact, when he was running for president a couple of years ago, was a guest on our show. But maybe to start people off, give them a little bit of your own personal history and what brought you to the decision that you're going to run on this party line, or try to run on this party line this year.
Well, again, I want to say my name is Doug Campbell, and I am one of the two Constitution Party candidates for the seat currently held by Mike Castle. I've basically been following these crooks since I was 12 years old. The 92 election, when Ross Perot got involved, everybody said, you know, you got to give it to Bush, you got to give it to Bush, don't vote for Perot. And look what we got. It really wouldn't have mattered who was getting elected between Clinton and Bush. We would have gotten the same thing. We've got two parties that have been bought and paid for by offshore banks. Their front company, the Federal Reserve, has bought and paid for them. You look at any one of the Financial Services Committee members, including Mike Castle, and then you look at and see who gives the campaign contributions. It's the exact same banks who receive bailout money that give him campaign contributions, and it just goes over and over and over again. You know, these banks were able to pay back these the TARP funds, or part of it. The new estimate from Bloomberg was $27 trillion. And those estimates are a couple of months old. Remember, the $787 billion package, that was only a rotating slush fund. That was as much money as they could steal at one time. There's such a level of high incompetence among our representatives. I don't know whether they really don't know what they're doing, or they're doing it maliciously. Regardless, the outcome is the same. They are going to protect the insurance companies. They're going to protect the banks. This health care bill is just another step in the direction of a total global banking takeover, and eventually a one-world government.
And we don't want that. We don't.
No, of course not. No, this is tyranny at its highest level.
In other words, if this happens, we all become essentially wage slaves for some global model.
Well, essentially we already are. If you look at what the Federal Reserve has been able to do since 1913, their inception, they're given a monopoly to create fiat paper money out of nothing, and pass it all out like it's like it's real money. They charge interest on that money. Now, where does interest come from on paper created out of nothing if only one front group, the Federal Reserve, has the ability to create this money? Well, it's mathematically impossible to pay back. So what we have to do is we have to freeze the Federal Reserve. Auditing it by itself will only dump the entire world economy into the toilet. What we have to do is freeze the Federal Reserve along with an audit. And out of an audit, we're going to find that Henry Paulson, Timothy Geithner, Goldman Sachs, Ben Bernanke, the list will go on and on, Alan Greenspan, they have all colluded to, this is the biggest robbery in man's history. And it's all been done through the banking and the complex finance system that we have. Fractional reserve banking. If you give a bank $100, they're allowed to loan out, 1,000 or 10,000 now. Ben Bernanke is actually talking about a regulation that would eliminate any reserves that a bank would need to keep on their books. Responsible fractional reserve banking was a 1 to 10 ratio. It's gone to 30 to 1, 50 to 1, 70 to 1, and now they're getting ready to throw it all out. I'm telling everybody out there right now, the most important subject in government right now is to get control of the Federal Reserve, because they are the reason for all of this, the rest of this cascading effect. And you're seeing both parties partake in this. You've got the Republicans that'll give you the Patriot Act, which strips away your Fifth Amendment rights. And now we have the health care bill, which is stripping away your Fourth Amendment rights. We are being attacked by both parties, and while the bankers laugh at us and watch each other fight with each other over left-right mediocre issues, we are being robbed by these offshore banks. You can prove this by looking at the seamless integration between the administrations. You get Ben Bernanke is still the head of the Federal Reserve. Timothy Geithner, who came from the New York Fed and originally from Goldman Sachs. Henry Paulson came from Goldman Sachs. This whole thing revolves around the finance. And if you understand that the derivatives market, which is just these useless, fictitious, made-up financial instruments that are just doomed to failure and more bailouts, the world value of these derivatives is now calculated at $1.5 quadrillion. It might as well just be, infinite debt. And we as a people in the country have been put on the hook for this debt by the same politicians that have been bought by the bankers. So we as a people have a decision to make. We can either be like Greece and put someone from Goldman Sachs in charge of their finance ministry, which they've done, and they're actually holding the country to the debt. They're saying, oh, we'll take a couple of islands, and that'll help pay off the debt. Or we can be like Iceland and vote as a people and say, no, we don't owe you this debt. We're not going to honor it, and you bankers can basically go to prison when we get done auditing you. And that's what we need. We need a congressman that is number one, not going to be beholden to a party, and number two, understands the financial fraud that is being perpetrated on the people. We need to get back to a gold standard, and we need to get back to 100% deposit held accounts, and any investment beyond that has got to be sold to the people as an investment, exactly like a CD is now. We've got this massive inflation. The dollar has lost 98% of its value since the inception of the Fed. And what have we gotten out of it? What have all the work and sweat and labor that our generation, our father's generation, our grandfather's generation, and even their grandfather's generation, all that work that we've put into this country, and the bankers own everything, something doesn't make sense, and it's the fact that it is fraud. And the sooner we wake up to this fraud, the better off we're going to be.
One thing people should understand is, even though it's called Federal Reserve, it's not a federal agency.
It's as federal as Federal Express. And it's one piece in the puzzle. I do have a plan. It takes about an hour to get through to really go through the steps of basically dropping the amount of fiat paper, fiat currency that's been created. Most of it's just digits in a computer, but they're still digits held in one of these zombie banks. We need to freeze and confiscate, or just, destroy all of that fiat wealth, and then get a total accounting of the gold that's left. Another thing that we're going to have to do is audit the Fort Knox, because I don't know whether it's full of gold or full of tungsten. There's been questions raised on that front. But anyways, we get a total number of dollars that have fiat paper Federal Reserve notes. I don't like to call them dollars. We'll get a total number of notes, and then a total amount of gold and silver held by the federal government. And the more gold and silver that we can confiscate back from these zombie banks, the more we'll have as a basis that we can divide against. And what we do with that ratio is we find out the true value, the true gold and silver value of the fiat note. And then once that ratio is established, then we'll start trading in these old fiat notes into silver-backed certificates. 1 ounce troy, silver-backed certificates. And we'll allow gold to fluctuate with market value, because when you try to tie two metals together too closely with a fixed ratio, it tends to not work out. But there is a concrete plan in order for us to get back to. It is scary. It is. Here's the bottom line. A massive fraud has been perpetrated. The debt is infinite. Somebody is going to be put in prison over it. We have to decide whether it's going to be we the people or them the bankers. And I say it's going to be the bankers.
We have a guest in studio with us. Doug Campbell is running for United States Congress from Delaware, a candidate with the Constitution Party, and a caller joining